government. During September 1963, the F-111 mock-up was inspected. On the 15th of October 1964, the first test F-111 was rolled out of Plant 4 of General Dynamics facility in Fort Worth, Texas. It was powered by YTF-30P1 turbofans and used a set of ejector seats as the escape capsule was not yet available. On the 21st of December 1964, the F-111 made its first flight from Carswell Air Force Base, Texas. Lasting for 22 minutes, less than planned due to a flap malfunction, this initial flight was considered to be satisfactory overall. Category I testing commenced immediately thereafter. Early flights of the F-111, which included supersonic flights, demonstrated favorably simplistic maintenance requirements, amongst other qualities. Various changes to the program were enacted throughout 1965. This was chiefly in response to a steep climb in unit costs from $4.5 million to $6 million. The cause of the cost rises has been attributed, at least partially, to a directive issued to General Dynamics to incorporate improved avionics as well as to work on strategic bomber and aerial reconnaissance variants of the aircraft, the latter of which was eventually cancelled. During April 1965, General Dynamics was authorized to produce 431 F-111s, less than half the number of aircraft which had originally been forecast. On the 10th of May 1967, a new multi-year FBIP contract replaced the prior procurement process, increasing the total aircraft on order to 493 F-111s of multiple models, including 23 F-111Bs intended for the U.S. Navy, 24 F-111Cs for the Royal Australian Air Force, and 50 F-111Ks intended for the Royal Air Force. Early flights of the F-111 were troubled by compressor surges and stalls across certain portions of the flight regime. General Dynamics had elected to use an uncommon spike-shaped variable intake for the engine for the performance. Studies performed by NASA, the USAF, and General Dynamics led to the engine inlet being redesigned. Modifications were implemented between 1965 and 1966, culminating with the Triple Plow I and Triple Plow II designs. During February 1965, the F-111 achieved a speed of Mach 1.3 while flying with an interim intake design. On the 18th of May 1965, the F-111B made its first flight. It was also equipped with ejector seats initially. Separately, cracks in the F-111's wing attach points were first discovered in 1968 during ground fatigue testing. During the following year, the crash of an F-111 was attributed to a cracked wing box. On the 22nd of December 1969, the USAF opted to ground the fleet due to this issue, save for those involved in flight testing. The resolution involved the redesigning of the attached structure and necessitated testing to ensure adequate design and workmanship. On the 31st of July 1970, the grounding was lifted. Category I flight testing of the F-111, which had started in 1964, continued through to the 31st of March 1972. Category II tests started in January 1966, while Category III testing was repeatedly postponed before being cancelled, having been deemed to be unnecessary. During 1968, the F-111B was cancelled by the Navy on account of weight and performance issues together with revised tactical requirements. Australia would procure its own model, the F-111C. Subsequently, the improved F-111E, F-111D, and F-111F models were developed for the USAF. The strategic bomber F-111 and the F-111 electronic warfare versions were later developed for the USAF. Production of the F-111 ended in 1976, following the completion of 563 aircraft. Design, Edit. Overview, Edit. The F-111 was an all-weather attack aircraft, capable of low-level penetration of enemy defenses to deliver ordnance on the target. The F-111 featured variable geometry wings, an internal weapons bay and a cockpit with side-by-side seating. The cockpit was part of an escape crew capsule. The wing sweep varied between 16 degrees and 72.5 degrees, full forward to full sweep. The wing included leading-edge slats and double-slotted flaps over its full length. The airframe was made up mostly of aluminum alloys with steel, titanium and other materials used in places. The fuselage was made of a semi-monocoque structure with stiffened panels and honeycomb structure panels for skin. The horizontal stabilizer was an all-moving stabilator. The F-111 used a three-point landing gear arrangement, with a two-wheel nose gear and two single-wheel main landing gear units. The landing gear door for the main gear, which was positioned in the center of the fuselage, also served as a speed brake in flight. Most F-111 variants included a terrain-following radar system connected to the autopilot. The aircraft was powered by two Pratt & Whitney TF-30 afterburning turbofan engines. The F-111's variable geometry wings, escape capsule, terrain-following radar and afterburning turbofans were new technologies for production aircraft. Armament, Edit. Weapons bay, Edit. The F-111 featured an internal weapons bay that could carry bombs, a removable 20mm M61 cannon or auxiliary fuel tanks. For bombs, the bay could hold two 750-pound, 340 kilograms, M117 conventional bombs, one nuclear bomb or practice bombs. The F-111B for the U.S. Navy was to carry two AIM-54 Phoenix long-range air-to-air missiles in the bay. The cannon had a large 2,084 round ammunition tank, and its muzzle was covered by a fairing. However, it was rarely fitted on F-111s. The F-111C and F-111F were equipped to carry the IN-forward/AVQ-26 pave tack targeting system on a rotating carriage that kept the pod protected within the weapons bay when not in use. Pave tack featured a forward-looking infrared, flow, sensor, optical camera and laser rangefinder forward/designator. The pave tack pod allowed the F-111 to designate targets and drop laser-guided bombs on them. Australian RF-111CS carried a pallet of sensors and cameras for aerial reconnaissance use. The FB-111 could carry two AGM-69 SRAM air-to-surface nuclear missiles in its weapons bay. General Dynamics trialed an arrangement with two AIM-9 Sidewinder air-to-air missiles carried on rails in a trapeze arrangement from the bay, but this was not adopted. Early F-111 models had radars equipped to guide the AIM-7 Sparrow medium-range air-to-air missile, but it was never fitted. External ordnance, Edit. Each wing was equipped with 4 underwing pylons. The inner 2 pylons on each wing rotated to align with the fuselage, while the outer 2 were fixed. Each pylon had a capacity of 5,000 pounds, 2,300 kilograms. Various bombs and missiles could be carried on the pylons. Auxiliary fuel drop tanks with 600 US gallons, 2,300 liters, capacity each could be fitted. The design of the F-111's fuselage prevented the carriage of external weapons under the fuselage. but 2 stations were available on the underside for electronic countermeasures, ECM, pods and forward/or data link pods. One station was on the weapons bay, and the other on the rear fuselage between the engines. The F-111's maximum practical weapons load was limited, since the fixed pylons could not be used with the wings fully swept. Tactical F-111s were fitted with shoulder rails on the 4 inner swiveling pylons to mount AIM-9 Sidewinder air-to-air missiles for self-defense. Australian F-111Cs were equipped to launch the Harpoon anti-ship missile, and the Popeye standoff missile. FB-111s could carry the same conventional ordnance as the tactical variants, but their wing pylons were more commonly used for either fuel tanks or strategic nuclear gravity bombs. They could carry up to 4 AGM-69 SRAM nuclear missiles on the pylons. Historical significance, edit. The F-111 was the first production variable geometry wing aircraft. Several other types have followed with similar swing wing configuration, including the Soviet Sukhoi Su-17 fitter, 1965, Mykoyankovic MiG-23 Flogger, 1967, Tupolev Tu-22M Backfire, 1969, Sukhoi Su-24 Fencer, 1970, and Tupolev Tu-160 Blackjack, 1981. The US Rockwell B-1 Lancer Bomber, 1974, and the European Panavia Tornado, 1974. The Sukhoi Su-24 was very similar to the F-111. The US Navy's role intended for the F-111B was instead filled by another variable geometry design, the Grumman F-14 Tomcat. Operational history, edit. U.S. Air Force, edit. The first of 6 initial production F-111s was delivered on the 17th of July, 1967 to fighter squadrons at Nellis Air Force Base. These aircraft were used for crew training. 428th Tactical Fighter Squadron achieved initial operational capability on the 28th of April, 1968. After early testing, a detachment of 6 aircraft from the 474th Tactical Fighter Wing, 474th TFW Roadrunners, were sent in March 1968 to Southeast Asia for combat Lancer testing in real combat conditions in the Vietnam War. During the deployment, 55 night missions were flown against targets in North Vietnam, but 2 aircraft had been lost. 660022 was lost on the 28th of March, and 66-0017 on the 30th of March. Replacement aircraft left Nellis, but the loss of a third F-111, 66-0024, on the 22nd of April halted F-111 combat operations. The squadron returned to the United States in November. The cause of the first 2 losses is unknown as the wreckages were never recovered. It turned out that the third loss was traced to a failure of a hydraulic control valve rod for the horizontal stabilizer, which caused the aircraft to pitch up uncontrollably. Further inspection of the remaining fleet of F-111s revealed 42 aircraft with the same potential failures. It is speculated that this failure could also have contributed to the 2 earlier losses had the failure caused a pitch down while at low altitude. It was not until 1971 that 474 TFW was fully operational. The word Aardvark is Afrikaans for earthpig and reflects the look of the long nose of the aircraft that might remind one of the nose of the Aardvark. The origin of the name has been attributed to F-111 instructor pilot Elme Texan in 1969, as the aircraft had not received an official USAF name. During September 1972, the F-111 returned to Southeast Asia, stationed at Takli Air Base, Thailand. F-111s from Nellis AFB participated in the final month of Operation Linebacker and later flew 154 low-level missions in the Operation Linebacker 2 aerial offensive against the North Vietnamese, who called the aircraft Whispering Death. They also supported regional aerial operations against other communist forces such as Operation Phu Phaien 3 during the Laotian Civil War in Laos. Crews described their flying in Vietnam as speed is life, one pass, whole ass, and you do more than one pass in a target area you die. The F-111's ability with terrain following radar, the best in the fighter world, according to F-111 pilot Richard Crandall, to fly as low as 200 feet, 61 m, above ground level at 480 knots. 890 km per hour, or faster in most weather conditions made it very effective. Missions did not require tankers or ECM support, and they could operate in weather that grounded most other aircraft. One F-111 could carry the bomb load of 4 McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom IIS. The worth of the new aircraft was beginning to show. F-111s flew more than 4,000 combat missions in Vietnam with only 6 combat losses. From the 30th of July 1973, F-111s of the 347th Tactical Fighter Wing, 347th TFW, were stationed at Takli Air Base. The 347th TFW conducted bombing missions in Cambodia in support of Khmer Republic forces until the 15th of August 1973 when U.S. combat support ceased in accordance with the Case Church Amendment. The 347th TFW was stationed at Korat Royal Thai Air Force Base from the 12th of July 1974 until the 30th of June 1975. In May 1975, 347th TFW F-111s provided air support during the Mayaguez incident. One of the most unusual missions occurred on the 14th of February 1986, when 2 FB-111s of the 509th Bombardment Wing were dispatched from then Peace Air Force Base, New Hampshire to Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma to pick up a heart for transplant. The aircraft landed at Bradley International Airport to deliver the organ to a waiting ambulance. On the 14th of April 1986, 18 F-111s and approximately 25 Navy aircraft conducted airstrikes against Libya under Operation El Dorado Canyon. The 18 F-111s of the 48th Tactical Fighter Wing and 4 F-111s from the 20th Tactical Fighter Wing flew what turned out to be the longest fighter combat mission in history. The round-trip flight between RAF Lakenheath /RAF Upper Hayford, United Kingdom and Libya of 6,400 miles, 10,300 kilometers, spanned 13 hours. One F-111 was lost over Libya and crashed into the Mediterranean Sea, probably shot down. F-111s participated in the Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm, in 1991. During Desert Storm, F-111s completed 3.2 successful strike missions for every unsuccessful one, better than any other U.S. strike aircraft used in the operation. The group of 66 F-111Fs dropped almost 80% of the war's laser-guided bombs, including the penetrating bunkerbuster GBU-28. 18 F-111s were also deployed during the operation. The U.S. Air Force credited F-111s with destroying more than 1,500 Iraqi tanks and armored vehicles. Their use in the anti-armor role was dubbed tank plinking. Expensive to operate, Crandall said that the aircraft was 9% of Tactical Air Command's fleet but ate up a whopping 25% of the maintenance budget. The F-111 was in service with the USAF from 1967 through 1998. The F-111s were operated by Strategic Air Command from 1969 before conversion to F-111G and transferred to Air Combat Command, ACC, until their retirement in 1993. At a ceremony marking the F-111s USAF retirement, on the 27th of July 1996, it was officially named Aardvark, its long-standing unofficial name. The USAF retired the F-111 electronic warfare variant in 1998. Royal Australian Air Force, edit. Main article, General Dynamics F-111C. The Australian government ordered 24 F-111C aircraft to replace the RAF's English electric Canberras in the bombing and tactical strike role. While the first aircraft was officially handed over in September 1968, structural issues delayed the entry into service. The first F-111C was accepted at Nellis Air Force Base on the 15th of March 1973. The RAF's first 6 F-111Cs arrived at RAF Base Amberley on the 1st of July 1973, and 3 subsequent flights of 6 F-111s arrived on the 27th of July 1928, September and the 4th of December. F-111Cs were allocated to number 1 Squadron and number 6 Squadron, under the control of number 82 Wing. In Australia, the F-111 was affectionately known as the Pig. The purchase proved to be highly successful for the RAF. Although it never saw combat, the F-111C was the fastest, longest-range combat aircraft in Southeast Asia, providing Australia with independent strike capability. Benny Murdani told Kim Beazley that when others became upset with Australia during Indonesian cabinet meetings, Murdani told them, "Do you realize the Australians have a bomber that can put a bomb through that window onto the table here in front of us?" Australian F-111s were ready to attack Indonesian forces during the establishment of East Timor's independence and the deployment of the Australian-led International Force for East Timor. In 2006, an RAF F-111 scuttled the North Korean ship Pongsu on the 23rd of March 2006. Because of the high maintenance time required for every flight hour, the F-111's retirement began with the F-111G models operated by No. 6 Squadron in late 2007. 24 Boeing F/A-18E/F Super Hornets were procured as an interim replacement as the Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II program was delayed. The last F-111s were retired on the 3rd of December 2010. Variants, edit. F-111, edit. The F-111 was the initial production version of the F-111. Early A models used the TF-30P1 engine. Most A models used the TF-30P3 engine with 12,000 lbf, 53 kN, dry and 18,500 lbf, 82 kN, afterburning thrust and triple-plow variable intakes, providing a maximum speed of Mach 2.3, 1,450 miles per hour, 2,300 kilometers per hour, at altitude. The variant had a maximum takeoff weight of 92,500 pounds, 42,000 kilograms, and an empty weight of 45,200 pounds, 20,500 kilograms. The F-111's Mark I avionics suite included the General Electric and /APQ-113 attack radar mated to a separate Texas Instruments and /APQ-110 terrain following radar lower in the nose and a Litton AJQ-20 inertial navigation and nav/attack system. The terrain following radar, TFR, was integrated into the automatic flight control system, allowing for hands-off flight at high speeds and low levels. down to 200 feet or 61 m. A total of 159 F-111s were produced, including 30 pre-production aircraft that were rebuilt to production standards. 42 F-111s were converted to F-111 Ravens for an electronic warfare tactical electronic jamming role. In 1982, 4 surviving F-111s were provided to Australia as attrition replacements and modified to F-111C standard, including its longer span wings and reinforced landing gear. 3 pre-production F-111 were used by NASA for various tests. The 13th F-111 received new wing designs for the Transonic Aircraft Technology and Advanced Fighter Technology Integration programs in the 1970s and 1980s. It retired to the United States Air Force Museum at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in 1989. Unconverted F-111s were mothballed at Aerospace Maintenance and Regeneration Center at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in June 1991. F-111B, edit. Main article, General Dynamics Grumman F-111B. The F-111B was to be a Fleet Air Defense (FAD) fighter for the U.S. Navy, fulfilling a requirement for a carrier-based fighter aircraft armed with heavy, long-range missiles to defend aircraft carriers and their battle groups from Soviet bombers and fighter bombers equipped with anti-ship missiles. General Dynamics, lacking experience with carrier-based aircraft, partnered with Grumman for this version. 7 F-111Bs were completed for testing, but it never entered fleet service. It had a troubled development and Navy requirements changed to a maneuverable aircraft for dogfighting. The swing wing configuration, TF-30 engines, AIM-54 Phoenix air-to-air missiles and AWG-9 radar developed for the F-111B were used on its replacement, the Grumman F-14 Tomcat. The Tomcat was large enough to carry the AWG-9 and Phoenix missiles while exceeding both the F-111S and the F-4S maneuverability. F-111C, edit. Main articles, General Dynamics F-111C and list of General Dynamics F-111 aircraft operated by the Royal Australian Air Force. The F-111C is the export version for Australia, combining the F-111 with longer F-111B wings and strengthened FB-111 landing gear. Australia ordered 24 F-111s and, following delays, the Royal Australian Air Force accepted the aircraft in 1973. 4 were converted to the RF-111C reconnaissance variant in 1979-80. Australia also purchased 4 ex-USAF F-111s and converted them into F-111Cs. In the 1990s, the F-111C underwent a comprehensive digital avionics upgrade program, AUP, which introduced new nav forward/attack systems, PAVTAC laser forward/infrared targeting system, and digital flight control computers. Later, the C model was upgraded with a unique version of the TF-30 engine known as the P108. This local version mated the P109 engine to a P107 afterburner, delivering 20,840 pounds of thrust and significantly increased reliability. The RAF retired its last F-111CS in December 2010 after 37 years of service. F-111D, edit. The F-111D was an upgraded F-111 equipped with newer Mark II avionics, more powerful engines, improved intake geometry, and an early glass cockpit. It was first ordered in 1967 and delivered from 1970-73 after delays due to avionics issues. The F-111D reached initial operational capability in 1972. The sole operator was the 27th TFW stationed at Cannon AFB, New Mexico. 96 were built. The F-111D used the new triple plow 2 intakes, which were located 4 inches, 100 millimeters, further away from the airframe to prevent engine ingestion of the sluggish boundary layer air that was known to cause stalls in the TF-30 turbofans. It had more powerful TF-30 P9 engines with 12,000 lbf, 53 kN, dry and 18,500 lbf, 82 kN, afterburning thrust.